So, buckle up. Here comes the news.
Now, international news with Jason, VK2LAW.
Hello. Commencing international news from Region 1. John, Echo India 7 Golf Lima reports Ofcom is now issuing some UK radio amateurs with temporary innovation and research licences to transmit in the 40 MHz band. On his blog, John writes, Roger Golf 3 X-Ray Bravo Mike in the east of England can operate from the 2nd of April for 1 year with 5 watts. Roger writes, it permits me to use 40 to 42 MHz with digital modes, including CW at 5 watts ERP max. I expect to be mostly on FT8, around 40.676 MHz. It is understood Golf 0 Juliet Juliet Lima, Golf 0 Juliet Hotel Charlie and Golf 7 Papa Uniform Victor either have or are applying for licences. Finland's National Amateur Radio Society, the SRAL, reports over 200 people have started training for amateur radio licences since the start of the year. In news from Region 2, the FCC has announced it would start charging for US amateur radio licences on April 19, 2022, a fee of $35 when they apply for a licence, and again every time they renew or upgrade their licence. AMSAT Argentina has prepared and donated to COCO Antar, Antarctic Joint Command, a beacon operating on WSPR mode. It was installed and began its operation at 40, 20, 15 and 10 metres from the Esperanza Hope Antarctic Base, emitting the call sign Lima Uniform 1 Zulu Victor. And in news from Region 3, Bharti Prasad, a well-known amateur radio operator in India, has helped with several relief operations across the country during natural calamities. Testing times have come once again for her when she saved the lives of terrified Indian students in Ukraine at the beginning of the war from her radio shack in Saidabad. I got in touch with a radio ham from Ukraine while making contacts. He identified himself as Vishnu, a Keralite, and informed that there were several Indian students with him in a bunker some 30 kilometres from Kiev. On not receiving any response from the Indian government, she contacted radio hams in Poland and Budapest, who gave their details and helped the students to be evacuated. Chairman of the Japan Amateur Radio League, Juliet Golf 1 Kilo Tango Charlie, Yoshinori U, writing in the JARL News, says the number of JARL members has increased from the previous year for the second consecutive year. He said, we would like to express our deep gratitude to all the members and other related parties for their support and cooperation. As the attention and expectations for amateur radio increase, we will work harder to promote amateur radio, and it is more important for as many people as possible to play an active role as members of the Federation, and the satisfaction of all members will continue. We will continue to work on the management of the Federation by striving to improve and further enhance membership services of the Japan Amateur Radio League. And that statement from Chairman Juliet Golf 1 Kilo Tango Charlie Yoshinori. For VK1 WIA National News in Sydney, I'm Jason, VK2LAW.
This is the home service of the Wireless Institute of Australia through VK1WIA. Now operational news with Felix, VK4FUQ.
Hello there. Now contest-wise for 2022. To start the segment of WIA National News, Dennis, VK4AE, contest manager for the John Moore 2022.
The log delivery has speeded up considerably this week, and so far there are 150 logs submitted, with about 50% of them from home stations. This should serve as a reminder to get moving, as there is only until Friday the 8th of April to submit your logs. Most logs are using VCL and are easy to process. However, a significant number have been received in Cabrillo format from N1MM+, and as these logs are missing a lot of information as required by the contest, they have to be dealt with by hand, and this has multiplied my workload very considerably. Some stations have been asked for more details, and often they are very reluctant to provide anything. Many club stations who have been active in the contest have still not submitted their logs, so maybe it might be time to offer a hand to help your club complete their log. So do not forget, submit your log this week, as you will miss out if it is received after midnight on Friday.
Thanks, Dennis. Now coming up in May, it's the Harry Angel Memorial 80-metre Sprint. Saturday, May 7th, 2022. 10 hours UTC to 11:46 UTC. The Don Edwards Memorial Slow Moors Contest 2 days, starting May 14, 1800 hours, concluding May 15, 1600 hours. DX window. VK90 ABC, an Aussie station celebrating 90 years of the national broadcaster, and is operating all this year. Time, gentlemen, time. A 30-minute once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. German North Pole DXpedition. Operators Martina, DF3TS and Thomas, DCATM, will activate Svalbard as JW home calls to start their DXpedition between April 9 and 12. Activity will be in SSB and FT8. They will be active from a Russian Sperveni Bolyus, the scientific polar drifting base approximately 80 kilometres from the North Pole on the Arctic Ocean, where they will activate the WWFF area RFF 0176. Operators will use their special call signs DPOLE. When written out, this call looks like the word pole, and as RA/DCATM/P and RA/DF3TS/P to represent the Russian flag of the camp between April 14 and 17. Activity will go on 40, 30, 20 and 17 metres using SSB and FT8. Activity from the North Pole, 90 degrees north, under DPOLE and DCATM/P, together with Martina, DF3TS/P, will take place sometime during this time. The exact schedule will depend very much on weather conditions on 20 metres, 14 to 44 kHz plus or minus. Now note, activity is limited to approximately 30 minutes. Francis RAF reports that Special Event Station TM97 Ward will be on the air April 16-25 to celebrate World Amateur Radio Day, which takes place on April 18. As last year, the RAF has planned to celebrate Ward, World Amateur Radio Day, by activating the special call sign TM97 Ward from April 16-25, 2022. Also, DARC, the German IAA member society's team SES, have activated the special call sign DA22 Ward until the 3rd of April, in celebration of World Amateur Radio Day on 18 April. On the air will be TM8C from the island of Brihat, between the 23rd and 30th of April on 40, 30 and 20 metres using CWSSB and FT8. QSL does home call F6CUK, direct by the Bureau and LOTW. 4X74 and 4Z74, Israel special event. Israel celebrates 74 years of independence this year. Amateur radio operators from Israel will be using the special prefixes 4X74 and 4Z74, starting May the 5th until May 11. Some of the operators may be using the special call signs during the Holy Land contest the weekend of April 15 and April 16. United States special event. Members of the Scranton-Bacona Amateur Radio Club, SPARC, K3CSG, will be active as N3T from Steamtown, Scantron, Pennsylvania, between May 13 and 15, to celebrate National Train Day on May 14, and National Preservation Month. This is a Parks on the Air park as well, K0864. The K3CXG operating schedule will be tentatively 1400 hours UTC to 2100 hours UTC each day, depending on park operating hours. Check QRZ.com. Mario IZ3KVD is in Zambia using the call sign 9J2MYT. He will be there in Lusaka until June. Listen to him on SSB on 40, 20, 17, 15 and 10 metres. Send QSLs via IZ3KVD. 3A, Monaco. Members of the Association of Radiometers from Monaco, ARM, will use the special call sign 3A5M to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the passing of Prince Albert I of Monaco, 1848 to 1922. He was a humanist, founder of the Institute of Peace, scientist, founder of the Oceanographic Museum of Monaco, of the Oceanographic Institute, the Institute of Human Paleontology, etc. Activity will take place between April 1st and May 31st. Operations will be on various HF bands using CW, SSB and the digital modes. QSL via the 3A Bureau. 9H6 Malta Special Event. 9H6 CAP is commemorating the 80th anniversary of the destruction of the Capuchin Monastery and the church on an Easter Saturday bomb attack, April 4 and 5, 1942, in Floriana, Malta, between April 1st and June 30th. Netherlands, PA. PA 75 DXCC on the air until August 2. Celebrates the 75th anniversary of the first post-World War II list of DXCC members, published in the July 1947 issue of QST. QSL via operator's instructions. Z81D from Juba in South Sudan until the 11th of September. Activity is holiday style. QSL Z81D via OM3JW. Indonesia. 7B2C, 7B2E, 7B2T, 7B2H, and 7B2O are QRV until the end of October 2022 to celebrate the Javanese Hindu Situ temple that was built in 1475. Activities on 80, 40, 20, 15 and 10 metres using SSB and FT8. QSL via operator's instructions. France. PC2F will be active as PF01 Max until the 20th of November over the 22 Grand Prix weekends of this year's FIA Formula 1 World Championship. For PF01 Max, you QSL via PC2F either direct, via the Bureau, Logbook of the World or EQSL. BBC Centenary Special Event GB100 BBC. Members of the BBC's Radio Club, the London BBC Radio Group, have been granted an exceptional all-year special event call sign to help celebrate the BBC centenary year in 2022. GB100 BBC will operate throughout the year from the headquarters station in Broadcasting House, London. Danish DX Group celebrates 50 years. The Danish DX Group, DDXG, was founded May 27, 1972. To celebrate the 50th anniversary, special event station OZ50 DDXG is on the air until December 31, 2022. Hadrian's Wall special event station. There will be two special event stations, GB 1900HA and GB 1900HW, running throughout the year to commemorate 1900 years since the building of Hadrian's Wall. Irish Radio Transmitter Society hams are using the special call sign EI90IRTS to mark the 90th anniversary of the founding of Ireland's National Society. Listen for the EI90IRTS call sign. QSL via EI6AL. Netherlands. Members of Viron section of Mid and North Limburg are QRV with special call sign PI75LAM to celebrate their 75th anniversary. QSL via the Bureau. A year-long special event began in Hungary on March 15 using the call sign HG200PS. Hymns are marking the 200th birthday of Sándor Petőfi, a revolutionary and celebrated poet. The station will be on the air until March 15, 2023. Be listening on all bands for operators using CW, SSB and FT8. QSL via HA8RD, Clublog or LOTW. For VK1WIA National News, I'm Felix, VK4FUQ Enningham.
The Pride Radio Group is a worldwide collective of queer radio operators and their allies who strive to demonstrate and promote acceptance of operators regardless of who they are or who they love. The Pride Radio Group weekly net is held at 0200 UTC, currently 1300 Sydney, on Sunday afternoons, and can be found on the VK2 ROT 70cm repeater, on Echolink via the VK Ragtube conference server, free DMR talk group 969, and a range of other modes as found in the text version of this bulletin. The Pride Radio Group appreciates the support of the Waverley Amateur Radio Society for allowing use of their repeater in carrying this net. For more information, visit the Pride Radio Group website at http://prideradio.group. Membership is free and comes with a strong sense of community built around the group Discord server. VK2WAY for the Pride Radio Group.
This is the home service of the Wireless Institute of Australia through VK1WIA. Now, special interest group news with Cole, VK3GTV.
Welcome to April and the end of daylight saving for those areas that observe it. Our first special interest group today is Summits on the Air, Worldwide Flora and Fauna Program, Parks on the Air and other adventure groups. Here's one, no matter what our walking or climbing ability, we all should be able to meet. HEMA, H-E-M-A. HEMA stands for Humps Excluding Marilyn's Award. To the uninitiated, that might look or sound like gobbledygook, so I'll try and simplify it. A hump is a summit that has 100-metre prominence, meaning that it sticks up above the surrounding land by at least 100 metres. A Marilyn is a summit with 150 metres or greater prominence. HEMA, then, is an award for humps with a prominence of less than 150 metres. Marilyns have their own award scheme, though, SOTA, Summits on the Air. The HEMA scheme currently operates in the UK and Ireland, other parts of Europe, and right here in Australia. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, IOTA, EU089. Tony, CU8AS, will be active as CQ84AS from Flores Island between April 13th to 19th, with the prefix CQ84 being to celebrate his 84th birthday. Activity will be on 160 through to 10 metres using mainly CW with some SSB. I hope you make lots of contacts, Tony, and best wishes on your 84th birthday. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, Military, Vietnam War Veterans Amateur Radio Event 2022. The Amateur Radio Alliance, ARA, has been accepted as one of the non-profit organisations that will be observing and honouring US veterans of the Vietnam War. National Vietnam War Veterans Day in the USA is observed every year on March 29th and is a way to thank and honour their nation's Vietnam veterans and their families for their service and sacrifice. The Amateur Radio Alliance will be recognising Vietnam veterans, and everyone who contacts their KP4ARA club will receive a commemorative QSL. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, Radio Amateur Oldtimers. And with news of the RAOTC, it's over to our West Australian friend, Clive.
Hello everyone, this is Clive, VK6CSW, reminding you that tomorrow is the first Monday of the month, time for the Radio Amateurs Old Timers Club of Australia's April Bulletin to go to air. As usual, we have the latest club news, followed by an item by WIA historian Peter Wolfenden, VK3RV, featuring recorded comments by several amateurs who were involved with the opening of the shortwave bands in the 1920s, after which you can hear the fascinating story of how Heathkit, probably the best-known electronic kitset manufacturer ever, originally sold not radios but light aircraft. In fact, Heathkit's founder, Edward Heath, never sold an electronic kit in his life. Everyone, RAOTC members and non-members alike, is most welcome to listen to the programme and to join in the callbacks afterwards. Full details of all transmission times and modes can be found on the RAOTC website at www.raotc.org.au, or just Google RAOTC broadcasts. If none of the transmission times suit you, you can download the audio file at any time from today from the website. Members and friends of the RAOTC in Perth are reminded that the next lunchtime meeting at the Bayswater Hotel is on Tuesday, April the 12th. All are welcome, but do remember that WA public health rules apply. 7-3 from Clive, VK6CSW.
Thanks, Clive, and once again, tune in tomorrow for the April RAOTC Bulletin. I'm sure you'll enjoy the program, and please join in the callbacks afterwards. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, Rescue Radio.
Peel Amateur Radio Group in West Australia will be holding Exercise Cloudless Dawn 1, a comms exercise in the Mandurah area Sunday, April 10, which will involve Mandurah local emergency organisations including police, SES, hospital and bushfire brigade, and will simulate a complete statewide failure of the internet after a cyber attack. PARG will be deploying its emergency communications trailer and antenna trailer and will have operators at various headquarters and critical sites. The exercise will run from 09:45 until 1300, and those tuned to this news in WA, if you'd like to listen into the exercise frequencies, well, they're shown in this week's text edition, along with links to PARG, where you can follow the entire plan when these are finalised closer to the event.
Now in its 20th year, SOS Radio Week celebrates the work of the volunteers of the Royal National Lifeboat Institution in the United Kingdom, National Coastwatch Institution, and in 2022, the many independent lifeboat and rescue organisations around UK coasts. SOS Radio Week starts on May the 1st, 2022, and concludes on May 31st, to coincide with the RNLI's own May Day fundraising month. For further details, please visit sosradioweek.org.uk. For VK1 WAA National News, I'm Cole, VK3GTV.
I'm John Knox, VK4FJRK, and this is Rewind. Amateur radio in Belfast in the 1920s. The Institution of Engineering and Technology has published an article about Eric McGaw, 6MU, who became GI 6MU, a radio amateur in Belfast in the 1920s. Eric's radio achievements featured in the newspapers of the time, and when aged only 15, he hit the headlines in the local press under the title of Belfast Island, Boy Spans Ocean, December 12, 1923. In October 1924, the Belfast Telegraph carried the story, Belfast Boy Receives 12,000-mile Signal. On August the 15th, 1925, the Irish Telegraph published a picture of Eric and his amateur station, and in 1926, under the title Belfast Talks to India, Amateur's Fine Performance, it was reported that on Wednesday evening, Belfast radio amateur Mr. Eric McGaw, GI 6MU, who has for some time been experimenting with low-power telephony on short waves, established telephone communication with Mr. H. Beck, Radio Y, HBK, at Kohat, India. Mr. Beck reported, speech quite okay, fairly strong, with no distortion. This is understood to be the first time words spoken in Ireland have been heard in India, and as Mr. McGaw was using an input of only 30 watts, about half the power used by an ordinary electric light, and a single 20-watt Mullard transmitting valve, the transmission is probably a record for low power and simple apparatus. So there you have it. My time is up. I'm John Knox, VK4FJRK, and this has been Rewind.
From Australia, this is the Wireless Institute of Australia with the weekly news service. Available on RF and on demand 24/7 from the wia.org.au website.
Now, on the social scene. In VK4, Redfest happens Saturday, April 9, St Michael's College at Caboolture. Sellers can start filling tables after 7 a.m. The venue for selling will open at 9 a.m, though the public can gather from 8 for breakfast. VK5, the South Coast Amateur Radio Club's Buy and Sell, Sunday, April 24. VK2, Mayhem at Wyong Racecourse on May 1. VK3, Moorabbin Ham Fest.
The Moorabbin and District Amateur Radio Club is pleased to announce the 2022 Ham Fest being held on Saturday the 14th of May 2022, with doors open at 10 a.m. This is a COVID-safe event. The event will be held at the Kingston City Hall, located at the corner of Nepean Highway and South Road, Moorabbin. The Moorabbin Radio Club's annual Hamfest is proud to be Victoria's biggest, with displays and sales of new and pre-loved equipment. This event, supported by commercial traders with specials on offer, as well as many second-hand traders, and it is an event not to be missed for anyone interested in radio communications and electronics. As well as the many bargains available on the day, there will be major and minor door prizes. Light refreshments will be available. Trader table bookings online at www.mdrc.org.au/hamfest. General inquiries can be made by emailing Graham Lewis, vk3gl@wia.org.au, or by phoning 0418 171 601. Victoria's first Hamfest for 2022, a must-see, must-come event. 7-3, Graham, VK3GL.
From Moorabbin to the Oxley region of VK2. That's when they'll be having their field day. When? June 11 and 12, the Oxley Region Amateur Radio Club. VK5 Australian Fox Hunting Championship and the SERG Convention, Mount Gambier, the Queen's Birthday weekend in June. Right across VK, wherever you are, you'll be able to watch the virtual event of the WIA AGM on May 7. And VK6, it's Perth Tech. Here's Bob, VK6 POP.
Perth Tech is on the weekend of October 21st to 23rd in the springtime in the Perth Hills. Attendance is free. You just pay for your lunch. Interstate visitors are very welcome. There's space on site for campers and caravans, so you can make a weekend of it, with activities on Friday night, the symposiums on Saturday, and the workshops on Sunday morning. We're calling for papers from potential presenters for our symposium on Saturday. You can lodge your expression of interest to be a presenter at our website, vk6.net. Selected presenters will attend Perth Tech as our guests.
Thanks, Bob. Now to the final. Special event honours country music legend Loretta Lynn. Get ready for a birthday party on the air, marking one of the greats in American country music history. We hear more about this special event from Jim Dameron, N8TMW.
The Amateur Radio Service Club of Paintsville, Kentucky will be operating a special event station from the birthplace of country music star Loretta Lynn in Butcher Hollow, Van Leer, Kentucky, commemorating her 90th birthday. During her musical career, Ms. Lynn received numerous awards, including 3 Grammys, 7 American Music Awards, 8 Broadcast Music Incorporated Awards, 13 Academy of Country Music, 8 Country Music Association, and 26 fan-voted Music City News Awards. The club will be using the call sign K4L, which stands for Kentuckians for Loretta. The special event station will be operating from 0 through 23:59 hours UTC on April 14th, 2022 on all HF bands and on repeaters on the East Kentucky repeater system. They will also be operating some of the digital modes as well as CW. For a specially designed QSL confirming contact, send your QSL and SASE to KY4ARC. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Jim Dameron, N8TMW.
This is VK1WIA. All points of contacts from today's news stories are to be found in print when you read the web editions, www.wia.org.au.
As we leave this edition of WIA National News, don't forget, WIA News rebroadcasters often give shortwave listeners a welcome to the broadcast as they commence callbacks straight after the local news. Now, local news follows national news in all states, and it would be great if those SWLs would also email their reception reports and location to this email address, callbacks@wia.org.au. I say again, callbacks@wia.org.au. Now till next we meet, I am Graham, VK4BB. Walk softly.
From Australia, this has been the Wireless Institute of Australia with the weekly news service. This broadcast is in text, audio and video and is accessed on wia.org.au.
Courtesy of Bevan, VK5BD's ATV and YouTube channel, this has been WIA National News. We're back now, live and local, and your voice, your callbacks. And don't forget, tick like.
Hello listeners, and welcome to this edition of the monthly news and information bulletin from VK3OTN, the station of the Radio Amateurs Old Timers Club of Australia Incorporated. This month it is April 2022. I trust you've all been well and getting ready for Easter, which will be upon us in just a couple of weeks' time. I am Ian, VK3JS, presenting this program for this month. Perhaps before I begin the information section of the program, I should offer you all an apology for last month's audio quality. I did make some changes in the configuration of the recording chain in order to introduce Andrew, VK3CAH, and at the end of the program I thought the audio was all right, monitoring it here in the shack, but when I heard it on the air on the first Monday, I realised that things were not as good as they should have been. And I understand that those listeners who heard the program via SSB would have been more seriously affected than the FM transmission was. So I'm sorry about that. I've gone back to the original recording configuration for this month, so I do hope that there won't be any problems now. In club news this month, I'm very happy to welcome two new members. Firstly, Rob Warnocky, VK3AMO, became new full RAOTC member number 1831 on the 27th of February, and Chris Chapman, VK3QB, became new full RAOTC member number 1832 on the 7th of March 2022. Greetings to you, gentlemen. Welcome to the Old Timers Club, and I hope that you will get some enjoyment out of our publications and our monthly broadcasts, and perhaps you may be able to contribute something to either or both of those productions. In turning to our first article for this month, I thought that you may like to hear from another RAOTC club member, Peter Wolfenden, VK3RV. Peter is possibly better known to us as the WIA historian, and some years ago, particularly at the time of the 75th anniversary of the WIA, and later for the 100th anniversary, he did an article on some of the archive material held by WIA. So here's Peter to tell us about it.
A sound archive, preserving our oral history. Over the years, the WIA has collected many sound recordings, some of which were used for the weekly Sunday news broadcasts. Others were interviews of early experimenters which were simply passed on to the Institute. During 1984, Max Hull, VK3ZS, a president of the Radio Amateurs Old Timers Club, a past president of the WIA, and, at the time, the WIA historian, worked with others to produce a compilation cassette tape for the 75th anniversary of the WIA in 1985. This was named The Sounds of Amateur Radio, Volume 1. The next major step in preserving our sound history was taken in 2008, when a further compilation was prepared for the 100th anniversary of the WIA, scheduled for 2010. This time, the selected segments were assembled as a CD, The Sounds of Amateur Radio, Volume 2. But perhaps more importantly, at that time it was decided to preserve in a digital format as many of the old tape recordings as possible, some of which were starting to mechanically fail or become noisy. This is an ongoing project which also involves documenting the subject matter discussed on the original recordings. At a later date, further details of this project could be discussed, but today we are going to play you some short segments from a number of amateurs involved with opening up of the shortwave bands during the mid-1920s. In our first segment, which was recorded in the 1960s, Max Howden, VK3BQ, talks about how, in 1923, the Trans-Pacific tests were initiated.
An argument started as to how far the continuous wave signals actually did travel. And the old mathematical argument arose that you could go on dividing 1 by 2 to infinity and you never got to nothing. So from that it was decided that the signals never entirely faded out. It was only a matter of building a sensitive enough receiver and it would be possible to hear the signals from the American amateurs who were able to transmit while we were not. So that we concentrated on receivers, and largely owing to the enormous amount of organising work put in by H.K. Love, together with the heads at RRL in Hartford, that the Trans-Pacific tests were eventually arranged for May 1923.
Howard Kingsley Love, VK3BM, an early dynamic amateur, World War I fighter pilot, and the person behind Kingsley Radio, famous for the AR-7 receivers and other radio equipment, also talks about the establishment of the Trans-Pacific tests. It's interesting to note that during 1946 the ABC made a radio program called The Hams. H.K. Love actually played himself, along with other amateurs, together with professional actors, in that particular radio play. The WIA has a copy of the script of the play, used by Howard, for the broadcast, which was made nationally and internationally via Radio Australia. Here now is Howard in a short extract from that program, recorded in 1946.
That we arrange a series of tests with the states starting the 1st of May and continuing, say, until the 30th. By working to pre-arranged schedules, we will at least know the signals are on the air. Well, I'd suggest 200 metres for a start. I know it won't be easy, but by May, atmospheric conditions will be reasonably good. And the Yanks are using high power, you know.
Another long-time amateur was Alan Butemont, originally 6TM of England. Later, VK3AD and the chief scientist for Australia. He was also a president of the RAOTC. Alan, known by most amateurs as Bill, was a young, keen amateur operator in 1924, when Frank Bell of Otago, New Zealand, and his friend Cecil Goyder, 2XX, had their famous two-way contact.
And it's interesting, just if I read you a few words from the article in QST of December 1924, which records this. The article is entitled, The Antipodes Linked by Amateur Radio. And the author says, "Get ready for a shock, gang. The laurels in this little old game of amateur radio no longer belong to America. We are barely in it. A whole string of new records have been hung up during the months of September and October. All amateur records were broken into smithereens on October the 19th, when Z4AA, Frank Dillon Bell of Palmerston, New Zealand, was in communication with Mill Hill School, London, G2SZ, for 90 minutes. Now, the Mill Hill station was operated by C.W. Goyder, and I knew Goyder well because we were both at London University at the same time. So when I read the banner headlines over the evening papers that night about this phenomenon, I phoned him up and asked him all about it, and he told me the score and invited me round to come and spend the night with him and then get going at 6 a.m. and contact New Zealand, which seemed all too easy when we did it, and then we went back to breakfast afterwards. So next morning, I operated a station called 6TM at that time, so next morning I got on the air and I promptly heard 3 New Zealanders, but none of them would answer me. And it took me about 3 days before I could make a gap in the clatter that was going on, all the amateurs in Britain trying to get through.
Max Howden returns again to relate the 1924 DX contacts. This was a recording made in about 1974.
I got down to something under 100 metres. But then I was sent over to Tasmania, over to Launceston, to endeavour to clean up the what was commonly called the Launceston Roar. There was this making broadcast reception more or less impossible. It was bad enough for the ship stations to try and work it out. And I don't know why they gave me the credit for curing it, because I didn't cure it. Certainly I did put them on the track as to where it was coming from. And that was the DC power supply, 200 volts, from the good old commutator equipped DC generators being fed into the wires, which was okay, except that the wires, instead of just being run along the posts and that sort of thing, on load and so on, it was supported all the way along from other wires on the posts, and that other wire, inductively coupled right round everywhere, was not earthed. And so I put them on the track of that, and apparently that was the end of the Launceston Roar. But while I was over there, the grapevine came through with the report that ZL4AA, our friend Bell, had worked G2OD and so on. Well, of course, I couldn't get back quick enough. I'd done the job to the best of my ability over there. I still had quite a lot of expense money left, but I came back and got on the air as quickly as I could. And the first station I really worked, it must have been something to do with Sunspot Cycle, because the first station I worked after I got back was Ivan O'Meara, ZL...
AC.
2AC, was it?
Yes,
that's right. And he said, you've got a terrific signal, Max. I'm quite certain you'd get through to the States. Can you come on the air tomorrow night, which was November the 2nd. It was Cup Eve, I know. And I'd been able to get away from work a bit earlier than usual because of the holiday next day, and I was to call Ivan at 7:30 our time. Well, I had an early tea and got on about 6:15, and I called Ivan O'Meara. 6 AHP came back to me, and that was it. I didn't need Ivan, thank him all the same. Now, then, of course, similarly, as in the case with the Gs, once the channel was sort of broken through, stations right, left and centre started working the Ws.
To finish up this compilation, we return to Bill Butemant in 1967, where he relates a rather humorous story about international amateur communications.
But having got through to Dylan Bell, 4AA, the same New Zealander, I promptly discovered that his father and my father were old acquaintances. We used to live in Dunedin, New Zealand in the old days. And so I went downstairs and woke my father up about 6 a.m. and I said, look, there's your old pal Dylan Bell on the other end, and he wants to have a chat with you. And my father took one look at me and he said, go back to bed, boy, you've had a bad nightmare. Well, after a minute I persuaded him that this really was true, and he came upstairs. It was an old rambling 3-story house with me, and sat down, and I suppose for the next hour the two juniors conveyed messages between the two seniors, and the messages consisted almost entirely of what's happened to old so-and-so. Well, next morning Bell was calling me, and what had happened was his father, being a member of the New Zealand government, had told the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister, realising that there had been an election in Britain the day before, was very anxious to get the election results. So as soon as Bell came on, he said, could I get the election results promptly? So I got the pushbike out and I pedalled up to West Hampstead, and I got a copy of the Daily Mail just hot off the press. And I pedalled back, quite exhausted. I morsed out the election results, and they were a resounding Conservative victory. And about, 2 months later, I got a letter from the New Zealand Prime Minister thanking me for pulling off one of the most interesting tricks he'd ever done in the House by announcing these results. He was a Conservative, of course. Announcing these results to the consternation of the opposition 2 hours before the cable got the results through. And they never knew how it was done.
If you are interested in hearing more historical recordings, please let the callback team or the RAOTC committee know. This is Peter, VK3RV.
Thank you, Peter. And that was the first of our articles in this month's Old Timers News and Information broadcast from VK3OTN. Now let's hear again from our good friend Clive, VK6CSW. This time on a well-known kit set manufacturer.
The Heath kit brand will be familiar to most amateurs, especially old-timers. Many OTN readers may have built one of these excellent electronic kits whose components, instruction manuals, value for money and backup service set the kit industry standard. Believe it or not, the man behind the company name never made or sold an electronic kit in his life. He made and sold kit set aircraft. Edward Bavard Heath was born in New York State in 1888. His family owned a machine shop where he acquired his engineering skills through practical experience, gaining sufficient knowledge by the age of 21 to successfully build and fly a basic Blériot-type monoplane aircraft in 1909, barely 6 years after the Wright brothers' first powered flight. A dapper, diminutive man who weighed under 8 stone, about 50 kilograms, Heath was blessed with an inquiring mind, courage, determination, and a great deal of vision. In 1913, now firmly hooked on aviation, he moved to Chicago where he founded the E.B. Heath Aerial Vehicle Company, a firm built on perseverance, ingenuity, and enthusiasm, but very little capital. Nicknamed Heath's Trading Post, it was a place where pilots could buy parts cheaply. Heath sold wires, fuel tanks, new and rebuilt engines, wheels, turnbuckles, and homemade aircraft dope by the barrelful. He also made wooden propellers, built wings to order, and if he couldn't find a required part, he would use his engineering skills to make it. Heath built his second aircraft in 1913, a biplane equipped with pontoons, which became a familiar sight over Lake Michigan. Then, as now, flying was an expensive hobby. Heath wanted to change that by building an affordable, easy-to-fly machine. During the World War I years, he developed the Feather, a 20-foot wingspan, lightweight, single-seater, powered by a 7-horsepower modified motorcycle engine, giving a cruising speed of about 45 miles an hour, roughly 72 kilometers per hour. It was about to be marketed when the American government released a huge amount of World War I war surplus aircraft and engines. The Feather could not compete. Undeterred, Heath established the Heath Airplane Company, selling surplus aviation equipment, and realizing that there was a great opportunity for teaching aircraft purchasers to fly, he founded a flying school as part of his company. Although the courses were short, his instruction was thorough, and hundreds of his students not only learned to fly, but also became expert engine and airframe mechanics. A novel Learn While You Earn apprentice scheme became a permanent fixture of Heath's company. Although Heath briefly deviated from his original light aircraft idea by building the 4-place, award-winning Favourite biplane in 1923, and then the Tomboy Racer in 1925, he returned to his original theme in 1926, building his first Heath Parasol. This was a single-seat, 26-foot wingspan, high-wing monoplane powered by a 27-horsepower Henderson motorcycle engine. A year later, an improved version named the Spokane Super Parasol was introduced. With a cleaner outline, slightly smaller wingspan of 24 feet, and powered by a British 32-horsepower Bristol Cherub aero engine, it was an immediate success. Heath had found his market and used every device to exploit it. You could buy a ready-to-fly parasol for $975 US, the airframe for only $690, or, if still too expensive, buy it in kit form, less the engine, for just $199. To further tempt you, the airframe kit came in 11 groups, the first of which cost a mere $12.47. And if you couldn't find the $12.47, Heath would sell you the blueprints for just $5 and you could find your own materials. The Super Parasol was the foundation of a whole new group of aviators previously excluded by the high cost of flying. Assembly of the kits required only the use of basic hand tools. Thousands of these little aircraft were built in sheds, barns and garages. One was even built in a church. The aircraft was well designed, sturdy, had clean lines and good flying characteristics. Ed Heath's dream of successfully marketing a low-cost aeroplane had come true. His firm prospered and won an international reputation. These were the first Heath kits, and they didn't contain a single electronic component. Unfortunately, Heath died in 1931 following a crash while testing a new aircraft design, but the company lived on, purchased by Walter Sinin, who relocated the works at Niles, Michigan, a few miles southeast from Benton Harbor. 2 years later, the company was renamed the International Aircraft Corporation, but failed in 1934. A year later, the bankrupt business was bought by Howard Anthony, who changed the name back to the Heath Aircraft Company and relocated it at Benton Harbor, Michigan. The firm traded successfully in aircraft parts up to the end of World War II. During the latter war years, the company began making aircraft radios, and at the end of hostilities, Howard Anthony purchased a large stock of war surplus electronic components, including a substantial quantity of 5 BP1 5-inch or 12.7 centimeter diameter electrostatic cathode ray tubes. To dispose of these, Anthony had an oscilloscope designed which would sell as a kit set for less than half the price of a comparable factory-built article. The O1 oscilloscope was an instant success and marked the change of the Heath Company from selling aircraft parts to selling electronic kits for both amateur radio and the general electronic consumer market. A characteristic common to all kits was the detailed, unambiguous assembly manual, which, if followed precisely, enabled either non-technical beginners or qualified engineers to build kits guaranteed to work, a feature for which the Heath Kit Company became justifiably famous. By a fateful coincidence, Howard Anthony, like Heath, also died in an aircraft accident. In 1954, while he was conducting pre-purchase tests of a de Havilland Dove twin-engined business aircraft, the flight encountered severe storm turbulence shortly after departing from Benton Harbor's Ross Field. The aircraft suffered structural failure, killing all on board. The following year, Daystrom Incorporated bought the Heath Company. Daystrom embarked on a major expansion, building in 1958 a second factory located in St. Joseph's, just across the river from Benton Harbor. An overseas factory was also established in Gloucester, in England, to serve the growing UK and European markets, with kits suitably modified for local mains power voltages and frequencies. In 1962, Schlumberger Limited bought Daystrom Incorporated, but continued to trade under the Heathkit brand, further expanding the range of kits available. The 1960s and 70s were the golden age of Heathkit, with millions of kits being produced. The range was enormous, everything from simple kits designed to introduce children to electronics, to stereo amplifiers, television sets, complex amateur equipment, test equipment, and even desktop and laptop computer kits. In 1963, the company began to focus on educational and scientific kits, which turned out to be a wise move. Heath's claim that anyone could build their kits provided they followed the detailed instructions to the letter was true. An outstanding feature of many electronic kits was built-in testing. As one part of the kit was completed, it could be used to test and align subsequent sections, thereby guaranteeing that the completed set would work. However, if for some reason it didn't, the company offered a comprehensive problem-solving service. Technical consultants were available via telephone, mail, or walk-in and chat. If necessary, the completed kit could be returned to the Benton Harbour factory for fault diagnosis and repair. Interestingly, the predominant cause of failure was dry soldered joints. In 1979, Schlumberger Limited sold out to the Zenith Radio Company, which, unfortunately for radio amateurs and other electronic kits builders, was more interested in computers and educational kits. By about 1980, component miniaturization, the growing complexity of electronic products, coupled with the strength of the US dollar, made the Japanese and other Asian imports cheap, making the production and sale of Heath kits increasingly uneconomic. The last amateur radio kits were launched in 1982, but sales were in steep decline. By 1985, the amateur radio division had decayed completely, although computer, educational, scientific and electronic security kits still sold. In 1989, Zenith Data Systems sold out to the French company Groupe Bull, a consortium with interests in other companies including General Electric, Honeywell Information Systems, Motorola and Packard Bell. In 1990, the last PC kits under the Heath Company name were launched. In 1992, all kit production ceased, although product lines in lighting, security and educational systems continued. Between 1992 and 2007, company ownership changed hands several times, but today Heathkit Educational Systems remains a viable and profitable enterprise. Since that article was first written in 2009, there have been some further developments. Heath manufactured electronic kits from 1947 until 1992. After closing that business, the Heath Company continued with its products for education and motion sensor lighting controls. The lighting control business was sold around 2000. The company announced in 2011 that they were re-entering the kit business after a 20-year hiatus, but then filed for bankruptcy in 2012, and under new ownership began restructuring in 2013. As of 2019, the company established a live website with newly designed products, services, vintage kits and replacements part for sale. You can access the latest Heathkit website by googling heathkit.com. Simply Google heathkit.com and you will see that they are in fact now still in business.
Thank you, Clive, not only for this article, which was originally broadcast some years ago, but for taking the trouble to go back through your archive of files and find original material for use now in our revamped format. Well, I'm sure you realise by now you're listening to VK3OTN, the Old Timers Club station, but I have to tell you anyway. We usually finish our programs with a joke, so here is one that was sent in by our good friend Clive Wallace. The rain was pouring down, and there, standing in front of a big puddle outside the pub, was an old Irishman, drenched, holding a stick with a piece of string dangling in the water. A passer-by stopped and asked, "What are you doing?" "Fishing," replied the old man. Feeling sorry for the old man, the gent said, "Come in out of the rain and have a drink with me." In the warmth of the pub, as they sipped their whiskies, the gentleman cannot resist asking, "So how many have you caught today?" "You're the 8th, says the old man. "Well, you take care. We look forward to catching up with you again at the beginning of May. So in the meanwhile, look after yourselves. Let's hear you on the air as much as humanly possible. Otherwise, just take care and keep smiling." This is VK3OTN, the station of the Radio Amateurs Old Timers Club of Australia, Incorporated. Cheers for now.